one of the most diligent and hardworking people in all of media, Julie Kelly, who has been covering the January 6th cases in a way that, frankly, almost no one else has. And we appreciate all the work she's done in coming on the show for almost 3 years now, off and on, to continue to update all of you. So first, thanks, Julie. Second, Buck and I have been talking. By the time we come back from New Year's, we are going to be about 8 weeks out, theoretically, from the start of Jack Smith's trial against Donald Trump. Is that actually going to start, you think, on March 4th? Where are we, and when would we find out if March 4th is not going to be go time? Because for as much attention as everybody's given to Iowa and New Hampshire, which are obviously on the horizon too, even more unprecedented is we're not very far away from what would be the start of the first criminal trial of a leading presidential candidate in any of our lives.
Right, you're exactly right. And there is a pretrial schedule of sorts already that's been underway now for the past few months. And I'll tell you what is going to start on January 9th is the beginning of the jury selection process, which should be very interesting. We're still awaiting Donald Trump's lawyers to file a change of venue motion, which we are expecting really any time. But she will deny that, as has every judge who's handled a January 6th change of venue motion, denied every single one. But by January 9th, Judge Chutkin has asked both sides for a draft of a jury questionnaire, which will be sent to hundreds of D.C. residents to begin weeding out unqualified jurors as they try to pick an impartial jury in a city that voted 92% for Joe Biden. So that will begin right after the first of the year.
What kind of other decisions have we seen, Julie? Thanks for being here with us from this judge that indicate the what Trump can expect here. I mean, my understanding is that there have been a number of motions put before her, and that effectively at this point, anybody who thought the fix was in beforehand is looking like that was a prescient analysis.
Well, it certainly is, because as we expected with Judge Chutkin, and I've talked about with you guys repeatedly, she already has a record of making inflammatory statements about Donald Trump himself, about January 6th, and of course, people, his supporters who went to the Capitol that day. So she's already portrayed and proven herself, quite frankly, to be a brazen partisan. And the fact that she's handling this case, of course, they filed a motion for asking her to recuse. She denied that. No surprise there. But she is acting as another member of special counsel Jack Smith's prosecution team, a rubber stamp. So we know that, of course, she imposed this broad gag order against the president, his lawyers, and unspecified parties. That now is on appeal. A 3-judge panel at the D.C. Circuit heard that appeal last Monday. A 3-judge panel made up of all Democratic judges. I'm sure you'll be shocked to hear that. It's on a temporary stay or hold until they decide what to do with that. Donald Trump has filed 3 motions to dismiss Jack Smith's January 6th indictment against him for selective prosecution. Of course, a very strong argument there. Unconstitutional and just not meeting the statutory obligations for those 4 counts in the indictment. Those are still sitting on her desk. But what she did this week is she denied defense counsel seeking subpoenas for witnesses for the defense, including missing materials that the January 6th Select Committee did not turn over to the incoming Republican majority, as they were required to do by its enabling legislation. I'll have a piece up on that soon. There are records, especially Secret Service records and others, who their transcripts are not available. Furthermore, you guys, remember we were told that all the materials would be turned over and made public? All of the video interviews, the clips that we saw during the televised primetime hearings, all of those full video recordings have not been turned over to the House, to Congress. And that is in violation, again, of the enabling legislation. But what she denied this week is she said, there's no such thing as missing materials. This is a fishing expedition. It's not relevant to the indictment, which of course it is, and denied Trump's motion to compel the production of those missing records by NARA and other bodies who are supposed to have them.
Julie, I just want to go back to the timeline again. You said jury selection process could begin January 9th, right out of New Year beginning. I keep asking you because I think it's so significant. March 4th is the day before, if I'm not mistaken, Super Tuesday, when there may well be a Republican nominee officially selected. Do you think that Trump is going to go on trial March 5th, or do you think we're going to end up? I mean, that's basically 3 months from now, if I'm doing the math right here. Or do you think this thing is going to get delayed more substantially and the trial will not begin on March 4th?
I still am surprised, and I'm not completely satisfied that Jack Smith is not going to add a superseding indictment. I know this is something I've talked about with you guys repeatedly. And a superseding indictment would add defendants to this case, and we know that there are 6 unindicted co-conspirators listed in this indictment, in Jack Smith's indictment. That includes individuals like Sidney Powell, Rudy Giuliani, Jeffrey Clark, John Eastman, people who have been charged in Fani Willis's indictment. So there's still a chance that he will want to add defendants and add charges. And I'll tell you why, and we've also talked about this. One of the 4 counts against him is sort of in legal jeopardy, and that's the obstruction of an official proceeding count. That could very well be headed to the Supreme Court because there are now petitions filed before the Supreme Court to take up the legality of the DOJ using that obstruction count against 300 plus January 6th defendants, including Donald Trump. If the Supreme Court agrees to hear that case to reverse the appellate order that has upheld this count, that's going to put his whole indictment at risk. So there's still moving parts to this that I don't think are settled enough to say definitively that that March 4th trial date will stick. Now it could, because we know that they want to expedite this process and get Trump behind bars before Election Day. So Jack Smith still is going to have some obstacles ahead of him. So there's a likelihood that the trial would be delayed if he does hand down a superseding indictment for this case. But for now, I guess we have to look ahead that date will stick and jury selection process will start. And then you're going to start to see so many more motions filed seeking the appellate court's involvement, and then, of course, the Supreme Court as well.
Speaking of Julie Kelly, you can check out her Substack, Declassified with Julie Kelly. And Julie, before we close up here, I just wanted to know the new Hunter Biden strategy of going on offense, despite the fact that he's already been indicted once and maybe indicted again. Can you shed any light on what you think the future of the Biden incorporated legal reality will be?
You know, it's so interesting. Look, we've seen Hunter Biden interviewed. He's a very good performer. We know that he's an artist. So I think that he will portray himself, as a victim here. He will turn on the waterworks. He will try to get sympathy, that he was a legitimate businessman. His father wasn't involved. And so this is just all optics. It doesn't look like House Republicans are going to fall for it. But quite frankly, I'd like to keep the pressure up and the focus on what's happening with Donald Trump and the January 6th defendants who are still being rounded up, arrested, prosecuted, sentenced to excessive prison time, because I think that poses a far greater danger to the country and certainly to the 2024 election than sort of this theater related to Hunter Biden and who and when and how he's going to testify.
All right. Outstanding stuff as always, Julie. You got to keep us updated. Shoot us texts anytime you got an update and you need to come on, because this is going to get – if they actually start this trial in March, I don't even know how crazy it's going to be. But I guess last question really quickly. Do you think there's going to be television cameras in this courtroom? I know Jack Smith has opposed it. The media outlets have all been in favor of it. Trump has been in favor of it. Chutkan obviously does not seem to dislike media attention. Do you think that she would make an exception on a federal trial here, or do you think this is going to be something that people have to cover from inside of the courtroom?
This is going to be a huge battle because, to your point, we have Trump's attorneys and major news organizations who are seeking at least one camera in the courtroom, which is generally not allowed in federal trials, but if not a camera, at least real-time audio access, which the D.C. appellate court has. So I'm not sure how Chuck can get away with completely cutting off any sort of live coverage of the proceedings, even if it's just an audio, YouTube, which the appellate court has. But Jack Smith, this guy is so dirty. He is so shady. He wants to keep discovery evidence hidden from the president himself. He does not want any real-time coverage. Of course, he wants a gag order. So, this is a prosecution that he wants held basically in secret. And for major news organizations, and you have to be in the courtroom then or one of the media rooms to cover it because he wants friendly news organizations to put their spin on what's happening instead of hearing Judge Chutkan, Jack Smith, and all of the evidence in real time so the American people can have access to this unprecedented criminal proceeding.
Julie Kelly, everybody. Julie, thanks for being with us.
Thanks, guys. Always appreciate you having me on.